crazy, foolish,
I think we're,
childish, or makes any gestures like the Nets player was doing with the Boston crowd the other night that
Yeah.
cost him $50,000.
Yep.
Boston crowd the other night that cost him
You're live. There's a little bit of a delay.
yeah, I did that just in case I need to beep out later or something.
Oh, 7-second delay.
You're out of luck. It's now 6 p.m. Wednesday, April 20th, 2022, and I'm calling the regular Belle Plaine City Council meeting into session. It should be noted, those in attendance are Councilperson Peck, Councilperson Schlesselman, Councilperson Morrow, Councilperson Malcolm, Councilperson Landed, City Administrator Steve Beck. I told the attorneys they could stay home tonight. The mayor's here, City Clerk Sandra Walton is here. I'd like to remind all in attendance, including the council and staff, to please shut off your cell phone or put them on the mute mode. With that being said, let's rise. Pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that being said, let's move to agenda item number 4, approval of consent agenda, council minutes, April 6, 2022, and bills received. Questions, comments? Seeing or hearing none, how about a motion?
I'll make a,
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the council agenda, the minutes from April 6, 2022, and bills received.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Last chance for discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. There are no residents in the room, so I will not wait for resident comments. Belle Plaine Community Development Corporation report, executive committee report coming from Judy.
Okay, the word that I received is that they are in the process of revamping their investment materials and getting ready to get those out into the community for the investment drive. They will be hosting a car show July 3rd, the Kids Zone Bags Tournament, and a band. And BPCDC will be meeting with the mayor and the bar owners after this event to see what their involvement will be in next year's event on July 3rd. And they are still looking to fill one more spot on the board of directors. They do have a potential candidate who will be coming to the meeting on the 26th. But as of tonight, they still have one seat to fill. And that's pretty much it. Steve, do you have anything more to add?
I think you did an excellent job.
Thank
What-
you, Judy.
What do you mean by what it'll look like for the next year, July 3rd? Like, are they thinking that they are trying to pass it off more, or what does that mean?
Steve, why don't you fill that part in? Because I've only been to two meetings and I've gotten just a little bit of that, but not a whole lot.
So one of the things that community development would like to do is partner more with local stakeholders to run certain events, and then community development would promote them and be more behind the scenes to help them. That way, when they are sponsoring an event or something like that, or a social group or something like that, an organization, then they have the potential to have some fundraising opportunities as well. That way community development could potentially get back to doing more
Mhm.
and kind of dividing things out a little bit more and working with a solid volunteer base. That,
All right.
Any other questions? Police report from Chief Hudson. So let's start out with the school safety zone idea.
Okay, yeah, a couple of guys brought this up to me a while back, just, inquiring why we don't have any signage for around our schools, for school zones. I told them I didn't have an answer for that. There should be. So I guess the thought is, or the idea is to go ahead and establish those areas as school zones and then put the appropriate signage out there to, alert traffic and whatnot. So I don't know how that pertains to the DOT with Highway 21.
Well, see, the DOT told us that had to be marked pedestrian, not school.
Well, that's for the crosswalk.
Yeah.
I'm talking the actual area, we're not looking at lowering the speed limit. We've tried that in the past. It didn't work, but I really don't think they'd have much of a problem adding a sign that says school zone.
So are you talking about something like at the start of 7th Street and 7th Avenue, just a sign that says entering school zone?
No, I would say you'd want to start a block or two to the south and a block or two to the north. Maybe a block, 2 blocks probably too far. And then same thing out the high school. We don't have any signage out there that there's even a school there. If you're not from Belle Plaine and you drive by there, you don't even know the school's there.
I would assume that we have no problem doing that out at the high school. I assume we have to get permission from the DOT to put anything on 20.
Problem.
right. That was one of the issues they had, was we had conflicting signs. We had pedestrian crossing, school zone, and they wanted it to be cohesive.
Did we have a school zone location?
I think it was just school crossing.
There was originally a school crossing, but that means something different
Right.
legally than a pedestrian crossing. So they highly advise that we do a pedestrian crossing. I will have to investigate with them to see
Yeah.
about adding
Run that
additional.
by them to see if we can do that on 7th Avenue. If
Do you have
not,
contact information with somebody?
Yeah,
If you do, if you wouldn't mind sharing it with me, I'll call them directly.
well, maybe we could have a group call.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
whatever works.
I mean, I think you got a good idea. I know when we're working with the DOT, they have that. I want to go up because I just see on that South Benton thing, gee, man, got to put, even though I know it's not a highway, got to put in a stop crossing there somewhere in Van Horn. Gee, they can't have the traffic going through that we have.
The other thing that we might look at too is replacing some of those speed limit signs out there. Some of them pretty worn and faded. I brought that up to you.
Ashley and I started a spreadsheet and for all of town.
More or less just to kind of freshen it up and make those signs pop a little more, because we get people driving 50 mile an hour out there by that school.
You get people driving really fast down 8th Avenue too. up and
Absolutely.
Down 8th Avenue, and there's no speed signs there. I don't know if it would help to put any, but there's a lot of speeding that goes on there.
Let's coordinate tomorrow and pick out some time
Yeah.
to sit down and just go over all your ideas. And we'll call the DOT.
All right, go over the security system bids. They each have copies.
So, yeah, we were talking again amongst ourselves in the police department about, why don't we have some security cameras on our building? Again, don't know. There's really no answer to that. We just don't. So, Officer Schmidt put a proposal together for some cameras, and I approached Matt Cressley downtown here. He also threw a bid in there, which actually is, it's less than what Jackson's was. So, we initially, I think we had 6 or 8, and then went up because we wanted to put some outside here on the southeast corner of the building for the electrical panel and all that stuff.
Do these two bids compare apples to apples? Because I noticed that on the one, it just said the system, and then the other one has the system, and then it also breaks out other items.
You look at both of Matt's.
There were 2 from that. I just had one from him and one from Officer Schmidt.
Yeah, it's the same exact system. Schmidt's only has a limited number of cameras. But when we increased it, I told him that, and I don't know if he actually printed it out for me, but he said it wasn't even close. His wasn't, so. Yeah, it was the Lorex brand of system.
But Cressley's here, this is the exact same equipment on the other bid, correct? Okay.
11 cameras.
Was it
That's what it says.
Then the one has Ethernet cable and a monitor and a junction box. And
Yeah, I kind of wish Matt was here to clarify that.
Matt did the one at the landfill. So I know he's got experience. I see he's even advertising some kind of special on them right now.
So yeah, Jackson's was $3,200, Matt's was $23.
The remote viewing on a mobile device is good because the museum just updated ours. We've got high definition cameras because ours was worthless. You could tell someone broke in, but you would never identify them. And now
These are supposed to be really good.
now you can see a gnat
Yeah.
as far as, and it's great to be able to have the mobile because I'm at home and I can actually check the whole museum out on all the cameras. So that's good to have.
I mean, if both of these are equal, then you're almost, no, you don't have to. Tied to the local one.
Yeah, if you want to cut the price, you can cut the number of cameras too, but, Steve and I and Matt and Jackson kind of walked around and we did that, so we figured out what we wanted, or what we thought we needed, or what would be best. So,
And these also have the capability of building it out too with more cameras if we need to in the future. If we decide we have a blind spot or something like that.
Well, you can never have too many cameras.
So we could support up to 5 more.
You get 25.
I think we had, 3 in the hallways, 1 in here.
One in the clerk's office pointing towards the window
Window.
for someone that was facing the window.
Mhm.
And then at every point of access, and then at every utility, and then the proposed generator site as well, so that if anybody monkeyed around with that. And we could potentially put one on the roof too,
I mean,
if
in
necessary.
the past few years, how many security systems have been key to solving criminal activity? You go down to Brooklyn if you want the most prevalent one in this part of the state.
What was that?
The Molly Tippett's one.
Oh,
If you
okay,
don't have that private security, I'm not sure you solve that case.
exactly.
So it's up to you guys.
Well, as long as you're confident that they're on par with each other.
They are.
Where's Jackson Schmidt out of?
He's one of our
Oh,
officers.
he's one of
He's our
the
night shift guy, that's why he comes to this.
Okay. Night shift, that's why.
Yeah,
Well, we'll give him your license plate number and
Pretty easy to find me.
Fast.
He's moving to Bramer County, but he's gonna work as a part-time officer potentially. So it could be advantageous to have an actual technician locally and
Yeah.
invested in the project.
That's what I was thinking.
well, I'll entertain a motion to accept the bid.
All motion for approval of Independent Tech Solutions bid for security system.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We go with Matt's bid. Okay, item 8 is your treasurer's report, your city budget report. Someday you'll have a solar report, but I'm not in charge. I'll have my chicken stuff ready for you next meeting. Cluck, cluck.
With some luck.
No, I'm just glad. I told her she's
the
getting
blockers.
she's getting the whole thing Friday afternoon, and then she has a week to get it prepped.
The tree fund is no longer negative, that's been wiped out. A few other negatives that we've been watching. The water fund gained a little ground. Hopefully we continue to move in that direction. The garbage fund also moved in a positive direction this month. It'll take a while for them to pop out the other end, but at least they're moving the direction we'd like to see them go. A few things, and I think we'll talk about this a little later in the meeting, but we may have to do one more budget revision. There are a few things that either happened since the last revision or things I didn't consider when we were revising. They're kind of coming to light now, so we may have to do one more quick round in May.
Yeah, isn't that normal? We have one in May.
It's just a little, we should have said it this meeting, so we'll probably have to,
New clerk.
sorry. I'm a meeting behind.
If it wasn't for you, we'd be way behind. Any questions or comments on those?
So the money that, as far as the Tippy fund, is that under economic development? The Tippy money that we got?
Yeah,
Okay.
And the windstorm fund is fairly sizable.
we still have some expenses that will happen yet. Still need to do a rebuild of well house 6. There's still a sand and salt bunker that has to be rebuilt down at the city shop. We still haven't settled on the crossing lights. So none of that expense is in there.
However,
So there's-
we're getting closer to being what we got is what we got. So I don't think we're gonna convince the state to give us what I want.
Doesn't look like it.
So anyway, I do have some fairly,
Yeah, I just wondered if it was pretty much spoken for.
the majority of it, there's a little bit of, management fee stuff in there yet. We just have to see where we come out with some of the, because there's still some projects running through FEMA.
Oh.
That are not.
Resolved.
You know, culverts and bridges and
Waterways. And
waterways and, street. So, any of those things we wouldn't necessarily get 100% of, so having a little extra in there would help us with some of those projects.
Yeah.
Other questions or concerns? Along that same line, Steve, did the superintendent ever get back to us on a report concerning the crossing guard?
negative.
Just wondered. I'll have to, either that or I'll just have to get up in the morning and walk down to the crossing and ask her myself. Any other questions there?
I've received no complaints about the crossing.
I think, even though that's not quite in this part, after we changed the painting lines, I think that helped us.
And then we added in yield here, remove those tiger teeth, they call it.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Gave some- a lot more
Moving the
elbow
tiger
room.
teeth off the top of the cross.
Yeah.
I'd still like to have a red light there, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain. Like I said, I want to look at Van Horns and then maybe make one more push with the DOT. Let's go to number 9, discuss for possible one-time utility credit of $929.60 at 1408 8th Avenue, Belle Plaine, for a major water leak that occurred when the owner was out of state, and it was not discovered until way late. Questions?
It's just 1 month's bill.
It's one event.
Looks like it went into 2 months.
It did by the time it was caught. You know, by the time you get the first read, you're already into the next month. So, yeah, we gave it about a day trying to get a hold of people, and then eventually went up and was let in.
Oh, there we
Stopped
go.
it right away, so.
So she was actually out of state at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah, we had to track down
Yeah.
some relatives and,
clerk spent
Yeah.
the better part of a day trying to find someone who could go in and find out what was going on. Kind of goes back to that, if you're gonna leave on vacation, have someone checking your house
Turn the water off.
or shut your water off.
yeah, it's not something somebody intentionally lets go after it was found out.
I will take a motion on this one.
I'll make a motion to approve a one-time utility credit of $929.60 at 1408 8th Avenue.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Last chance for discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Okay, item number 10 kind of comes up a little different. We do have a transient merchant policy. We do. But I got this email through Event Development that our new florist wants an event for their grand opening where they want to bring in a food truck, and then later on July 1st, they want to bring in Scratch Cupcake. And then I looked at the city ordinance, which I put in here for you. Most of the time when food trucks come in, they're on private property. They're not in public parking places. So I thought possibly you would want to review. I mean, otherwise this will just go through the clerk's office and be approved. But you might want to review, do we want to do something different if they're going to use taxpayers' parking spaces? Do you want to make those, what is it, $25 is the fee? It's pretty cheap for using one of our parking places and not paying us any property tax.
For a couple hours.
Was this ever enforced in the past, like when community development, kind of like the donut guy came? I was not aware of this ordinance.
Or the firehouse pizzas that were on Main Street.
Yeah.
I
For the
don't,
3rd of July.
no,
No,
not
for
for
the
the 3rd
holiday
of July.
homecoming.
I don't think so.
Holiday homecoming had the firehouse pizzas.
I think
on
those
Main Street.
we have not enforced it because Belle Plaine Development's doing it for city. But there's a place been selling pizza last couple Saturdays at Country Foods. They've got a permit. I don't know whether we ever forced that guy to get a permit that was always doing it when he had the golf thing, the disc golf thing. I don't know whether he ever got one. There used to be a Mexican truck at the old Blue and Gold on Tuesdays for a couple summers. And
This was not in place then.
this wasn't?
This was not in place then.
Well, I just got a ton of phone calls from the Ice House, and I said, there's nothing I can do with them because it's private property, and
I think this came out of that.
I could have been in.
Okay.
I'm just thinking all these others are primarily either not been a special city event. The other times they've been on private property. But now you're gonna be using a parking place right down on Main Street where you have several places that serve food. But you don't have to. Or you can just change the fee.
The way it's written, 12205 requires a transient merchant bond. I'm not even sure that I know exactly what that is. The Secretary of State.
I don't know, they have to ask the person that collects the fee.
I would imagine that Scratch Cupcakery has that because they go a lot of things. And
Yeah,
I know she's had the, vehicle out at her place when she does some of her sales.
Do we ask to see any of that stuff, Sandy?
I know we requested it of the
Pizza guy?
pizza guy.
So we'd be requesting it of these people. I guess my major question to you was, did you want to do something about the fee?
You know, promoting the grand opening of a business and, I mean, we're expecting them to pay the fee, correct?
I would think so.
Yeah,
Expecting the merchant to pay the fee? I don't know who's gonna pay it.
somebody.
One or the other.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have something a little different.
I think so too. You don't wanna
You don't
say
wanna
no and
discourage.
then you have a new business. Well, now they're already restricting me. Why do I wanna do this here? You know, be open-minded and with a grand opening, they wanna bring something in. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And I don't see to where it's directly competing against any other business that's in town for that short
Cupcake,
period
well,
of
the
time.
food truck will.
Yeah, but the
Competition isn't bad though. I mean, there's competition in other cities of the same food chains everywhere.
True, but there's a bigger fee in Cedar Rapids to use public parking.
Right.
When you bring a food truck in and
Mhm.
park it privately, it's a lesser fee. When you use public, if they park them publicly downtown,
Mhm.
then they pay a bigger fee.
I think it's kind of a one-off thing and, you know, she's being creative with her grand opening and doing something different. And I wouldn't object
I
to
would
that.
hope some other people would maybe do it too,
Mhm.
with grand openings or something.
I think it'll get more people on Main Street. It's not like it's gonna be there week after week after week.
Okay, I just brought it to your attention, folks. On number 11,
It is.
I put this one in here.
Yeah, you
The chief is here. I talked with this gentleman, discussed for possible extension of nuisance complaint at 1310 Fourth Avenue, as the owner is waiting on an official bill of sale, so the current question is street worthy. He claims it starts and runs, and we know that it's actually moved from the spot where we broke this nuisance complaint. He can't get a license plate for it because he has to have an official bill of sale, and so whoever he bought it from is one of those people making promises and not following through. So I asked him how long he needed, and he thought if you gave him till June 1st, he'd be all right. But we know he has moved the vehicle from where it was at. But now, part of the nuisance complaint that's still valid is that it doesn't have a valid license plate on it. And he can't get one until he gets the bill of sale.
And it was the wrong.
Mayor, I think it's worthy to note too,
this vehicle's been a nuisance for a couple of years because it was previously at the, I'll call it the Virginia Smalley residence that we've been dealing with down Second Avenue. It sat there for, I don't know how long, and was the subject of several abatement orders. And then it went from there to its current location up on Fourth Avenue. And when he moved it, he literally moved it about 10 feet to the west. So he says it runs. I haven't seen it run. Maybe it does. Take his word for it, I guess, but
So he could have pushed it.
easily, yeah.
I would give him till June 1st, and if it isn't, then we come in hard and heavy looking at total.
That's fine with me. Then that's it. June 1.
We can pass that motion June 1, or we're coming after the vehicle.
No extensions. No other
I can
extensions.
extend that to him. Of course, you guys realize you can never get it recorded as long as. Give me a motion that says that, so when I call him back,
I move to allow the owner of the junk vehicle at 1310 Fourth Avenue until June 1st to remedy the situation.
no extensions,
No extensions.
no forgiveness, no color changes. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. There is no committee of the whole report tonight. City administrators report. Tell us what you want to tell us.
All right, Jack with Seppermatic. That's the guy that is going to come down to look at a potential filter system for well 6. We'll be here on Monday. We're supposed to meet and look at that whole facility over and see what some of our options might be.
Time is he going to be here?
8:30 or 9. We could wrap up and do lunch or
Well, I
something.
could make 9, but do I want to? Go on.
The Public Works team has been cleaning buildings out and cataloging parts and supplies. So we have an accurate account of what we have for when we have emergencies and, where we have vulnerabilities with our supplies and then organizing everything. Then we're going to create an actual inventory spread list that we're working on. So, and then some kind of a recognition system or so that's, if we say you need to go down and get a 12-inch Hymax, that it's labeled on there, then they know what parts to get. So anybody could go down and know exactly what they're looking for. They've been working with some of the dirt piles around and digging with the backhoe, learning how to use the digging equipment, loaders, and practicing with all the different trucks and getting familiarized and cross-trained on, 3 or 4 pieces of equipment. They did that this week and moved, I don't know, I'd have to guess 20 some loads of black dirt to the compost site that'll be available that was stockpiled at the wastewater treatment plant. As we're going through buildings and finding erroneous pieces of equipment that we don't need anymore, some of those will be liquidated, and they're mostly all small items. Like some of them are confiscated bicycles. There was between 12 and 20 bicycles. Those are going to go down to the auction house. There's a couple old motors sitting around and a couple of old pumps that have Wisconsin engines that would be kind of difficult to find parts for. And we don't really use them. We have 4 new trash pumps for sucking water out of water main break holes and so forth. So those would be the frontline equipment in an emergency. The viability assessment financials, Heidi is putting the finishing touch on those. And I have been in contact with Lori Sharp and provided her with some updates, and I'm hoping we can wrap that thing up here pretty quick.
Lori Sharps with the DNR.
Correct. She's my main point of contact for getting all of that stuff in.
Extension is still April 30th.
And the first name you mentioned was,
Heidi Cool with Northland Securities,
Okay.
the financial institution.
okay. What about the water report or the,
This is all tying
Coming
it together. So we're all trifecta trying to pull, that's the last component, is I've added and removed several things. I removed the Jordan Aquifer well. We're not doing that. We're not going to spend $3 million for one well that's going to produce very low quality water, and then put in a multi-million-dollar treatment system to then bring it back to, we've got our well number 6 that has, a lot better water than Jordan Aquifer water. So I'm like, we don't need these options that aren't realistic. And then I had them add in a 5 to 7 year, I can't remember where we ended up, meter replacement. So as we go through our loss, our water loss audits, that, we will have more accurate water meters, and that's going to be an option. So what we're going to do is try to come up with a bunch of options for the city council and how we want to have our capital improvement projects laid out. There are, 4 or 5 things that we must do, and then there are some things that we can do. And I've been looking at alternative financing sources, like our TIF district downtown. The valuation on that went up approximately $100,000. And I had, when Sandy was preparing that earlier, I had her certify all that. So we have that extra $100,000 to work with. Since we don't have something built into our urban renewal plan immediately, we can use that money to pay down a year or so off of the streetscape project, save a little bit on interest, knock a year off the payment. And then once we sit down, we can say, here are some things we want to do with our urban renewal plan, so that those TIF dollars that are generated from Main Street can be utilized almost anywhere in town. So if we decide to do a filter system at well number 6, for instance, that's already in our urban renewal zone. So if we take on debt to do that project, that's how TIF works, just a debt repayment mechanism. That's a way we could, I don't have all the numbers yet, but that's a way we could potentially pay for something without touching the water rate. Whereas other revenue bonds, like if we dig wells and so forth, we may have to adjust the water rate and Northland Securities would have to do that rate study and tell us, where we would be. However, if we annex in the well field, like I'd like to do in the industrial park, we don't even technically have to annex those properties in as long as the county agrees to it. And most of the well field is in Tama County, so we're gonna have to work with those folks to see if they'll allow us to use TIF dollars in that area. So I had, Mayor and I had a really good conversation with Amy Bjork with Dorsey, and we went over about any scenario that I could come up with for how to best use the surplus TIF revenue. Does anybody have any questions on that? It's kind of complicated stuff.
So when's Veenstra and Kim gonna be done with this water?
So I would say as soon as Heidi and I are done figuring out what our strategy is, that's kind of what Veenstra and Kim was waiting on, was how are we going to pay for this and what are our projects? So with Veenstra and Kim, I worked with them and said, we're not, a Jordan Aquifer well's off the table. A Cerulean well is off the table. We're not doing those. So let's take them off as options and just focus on the things that we know we can do and that are manageable SMART goals. And for instance, recoating the standpipe, the water tower, the inside of that needs to be recoated. That's going to be a big project. Drilling 1 or 2 new wells.
Is that what the tower's called?
Recoating
the standpipe?
It's a standpipe because it's not an actual tower, because it touches the ground with water. So it's the technical term for it. Whereas, other towers have the.
Yeah, but we've known that for 2 years. We got that report a year ago.
Right. But it's going to probably cost a couple $100,000 because we have to drain that out completely. And then I have a guy lined up that has semi-tanker trucks with giant air bladders in them that would work as expansion tanks. Because you can't just, it's like if you're on the farm and you turn on a well, you just don't turn the well on and off every time you need water. You have to have an expansion tank or you'll have leaks. So there has to be some place for that to buffer. So we would have to have between 4 and 6 semi-tankers around town and some pressure relief valves. The standpipe would be empty for about a month to strip it down, recoat the entire inside. One of the things that will potentially come from that is we won't have to have the cathodic protection in there anymore. And basically what that is it's sacrificial pieces of material that corrode rather than the inside of the tank, kind of like a anode rod inside your water heater. So right now we have an electronic system that, positively and negatively charges anodes in there so that it, on a atomic level, the electrons attack that rather than the material that is made up of the tank.
So when will we do that recoating?
That will depend on what the council decides are the top priorities. But I feel like, we're going to need to do these. It's just which year. Is it year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? So, we inherited a very old system and there's multiple things that need to be done. So we have to play catch up and we want to do it as intelligently as possible and have a good, thoughtful chain of events, get it lined up correctly so we're not stepping on ourselves.
So is that gonna come before us first meeting in May?
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. So once we wrap up the financials with Heidi, then I will submit all of those things to the DNR. Well, we can all review them and then we can submit them to the DNR. And then essentially our water study should be close to done because that is the final component. The viability assessment is part of the water study. It just got thrown in the mix right in the middle of it instead of afterwards. So just a little curveball, but we are handling it as it comes.
Anything else?
I got a question for Steve. You said that we inherited this. How many years of neglect are we looking at that this stuff could have been done, should have been done? You know, I mean, if we inherited a problem, how many years was this put off?
Well, I will try to give you a concise answer. We have water mains in town. I'll just start there. We have water mains in town that are almost as old as the town. And with any luck, our crew, as we grow, you know, I've talked with engineering companies and they said we can work with you to try to get to the point where you guys can replace your own stuff. And that's what I'd like to get to someday, you know, as we work forward. So we have aging infrastructure. The oldest well was drilled in 1922. And then there were a couple drilled in the 40s. Well number 5 was drilled in 1978. And well number 6 was drilled in 88, 89 during that drought period. And at that time, I believe Mayor Fish may even still have the schematic for it. I think that the complete water treatment plant at that time was between $400,000 and $600,000.
$400,000.
Yeah. So
Projected by the council.
So imagine, you know, like the facility we have where the wastewater treatment plant is, it would be different, but just imagine that kind of a structure over in the northwest part of town to treat all of the water for $400,000. So,
And that was in 80s.
late 88, 89, 90.
And about
Those are some
94,
examples.
95, they projected another one for 5 minutes.
Really?
And then the DNR got at us with our sewer plant. And we spent 5 years going through that whole sewer plant plan before we attacked the problem out there.
I guess my main question is, you know, everybody wants immediate results from us right now, but this is showing that this is something that's been going on for a long time, that we're not going to get an answer tomorrow.
This is one of the toughest things that is gonna, I mean, this is the future of the town. And I just feel like this is the group that can get it done. And we don't really have a choice. We just have to do
The
it.
rules are only gonna get more strict.
That's correct.
The problem that we'll find is we're gonna try and solve making well 6 a better well and put in 1 or 2 new wells. But that's not gonna solve the rust problems. That's our old underground system. But
Yeah.
for us to get to there, to get to the water mains is a process. And I'm assuming somewhere, because I don't want our past councilmen to think that we're dumping on them.
That's absolutely
They
not what I was
got-
trying to
they
do
got At
either.
some point, something else jumped in the way of them too. And I can't imagine all the things it was. I know there was a huge problem. One point in time, the whole south end of town had basically no stormwater system. Absolutely nothing. It sat in their yards. It was not drained off. That was a huge project in the 60s. So
And then you had fire station, community center, those types
all
of
those
things.
things had gotten away. And then the streetscape project, when they took a look at that and said, well, because I know at that point in time, they were running on a sewer relining project that came to a dead end. So
And so,
we've got to put all those things in order and then start figuring out how to do it.
we have valves in the system that are inoperable or we can't find them. They were there, then you know, they may have gotten paved over years ago. Fire hydrants, just all those things. You know, we have a crew now that is getting in position that we can do those things. And I talked to our engineers and I said, if we have a real thoughtful plan and we say we're going to replace this fire hydrant that was installed in 1918, and we have, you know, valving and everything like that, go ahead and do it. And they said, yeah, you guys, you don't have to have an engineer on site to replace a fire hydrant. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to be doing. And, you know, we have some hydrants around, and this team wants to do work. And we're meeting every other Friday. We'll meet in a couple days here. And that's kind of, I mean, we're ground zero. So we're talking about, our last meeting was IDNR training, how we're going to get skills, how we're going to learn more about safety, pathways to certification, and better chain of communication just as the team. And then I went over the sanitary survey with them. And then we just had kind of time to talk about their ideas and what they want to do. Like, what do you want to learn how to do? And it is pretty cool to watch. So, you know, we're going to do that again on Friday. And just the only way to eat an elephant's one bite at a time. And we have a big project, and, you know, a lot of projects around, and we're not going to be able to do all of them ourselves, but we're going to give our best effort to do those that we can ourselves, and it'll save a lot of money. Did that answer your question?
With the old, were you on the council when we started? It ended up doing a new chlorinator room. We started down on the corner of what was it, 6th Avenue and 11th Street, gonna put in a valve and a fire hydrant,
Yes.
and that didn't work. And so, well, we knew we had to do, they came with a different plan. We didn't like what they wanted. They were proposing some kind of valves on top of valves. And they said, well, let's get the chlorinator room taken care of, which sits out at the well field. We get out there, well, the whole chlorinator room's garbage. We ended up taking, I don't know, $150,000 budget. It all went to the chlorinator room out there. And if we hadn't stole Steve away from Frontier, borrowed him for a while, he convinced the DNR that we would be allowed to put it underground. Otherwise, new chlorinator rooms have to go above ground. Well, that would have turned it into a $500,000, $1 million project. So with an old system, and I think the people have to understand, once we start tearing into something, all of a sudden, oh, yeah, this kind of works, but we've got to tear this out and replace this first.
It's like working on an old house, except it's more like heart surgery because you can't shut it off. You know, it really is, because we don't want anybody to ever be out of water, ever. But you know, there are times when there are disruptions, but.
And this did come with a drought that we've never had one like this before. We've always got bailed out before.
These
That
rains.
88, 89, I forget which summer was so bad.
Yeah, we've never had to run well 6 like this ever.
No.
Ever.
So hopefully we get the plan put together, and then we'll start figuring out how to pay for the pieces and how to do it reasonably.
So I think, you know, one of the top priorities, something that we can jump on right away, is that well 6 project and getting some treatment up there. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I'll learn a lot. I'll know a lot more end of day on Monday after I talk to Jack. And then I've got another guy that does a similar thing coming from Rockford, Illinois, so that I can have 2 quotes and get both of their expert opinions on this. And then I'm doing the legwork. The engineers don't have to do the legwork, so we don't have to pay them for that. And we get what we need and nothing more. No offense to the engineers. We don't need it overbuilt 5 times. We just need what we need.
Thanks, Steve.
Mayor's report, I have not attended any meetings recently because meetings start tomorrow night and run through the next 2 weeks. So I'll bring you back reports later. Where it says review letter, we will go to closed session to do that. Because that needs to be an evaluation. I will, and one of the things that they will, I've already told the city guys, sometime in the June meeting, we're gonna stop the meeting very early on. I'm gonna take you to the sewer plant. You're gonna tour it.
That's 2 years in the making, sir.
It's gonna happen this time. They've been warned now. And then in July or August, you're gonna tour the shop because it should finally be straightened and cleaned the way we want it. So with that being said, that's really all I have to report to you tonight before we get into closed session.
We wanted to talk about setting up a public hearing, which we can't do because it wasn't on the agenda, so the next meeting we'll set a public hearing.
We'll set a public hearing and then somewhere,
We'll require a meeting to be the last Wednesday of May.
yeah, we'll end up having a special council meeting to pass a budget amendment to get it all in so it's done correctly before the new fiscal year. She's discovering a couple departments that are over budget that we've got to fix the budget for. And some we didn't take into account some of the new things we've changed in mid-budget. So there will be a special council meeting probably the last Wednesday of the month, which will take you probably, if I stall it long enough, it'll take you 15 minutes to collect your $30. If I go fast, you can collect it in 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
I just wanted to say while I was doing my report, all of the video dropped. I don't think the audio did, but sorry out there, everybody. I looked away to the council for 5 minutes and things shut off.
So is it on now?
I believe everything's working now.
So if there was a problem with that, public, send your letters and cards to Steve Beck, City Administrator, 807 8th Avenue, City Hall. Don't send them to the mayor. I had nothing to do with the electronic part of this meeting.
1207.
1207, 807.
Somewhere.
It'll go somewhere.
Judy Hutfello's gonna go,
Eighth Avenue.
what do I have to do with this?
Correspondence, I have no correspondence, I have no old business, and there is no one here, including the chief, for resident comments. That being said, I will give you a 5-minute recess before I ask one of you to make a motion so we can go into closed session, plus I have to get the forms out. And the city clerk is dismissed. And I guess to the public, we will be going into closed session, which you do not get to see on TV. So we are going, for all practical purposes, shutting off for the night, going into closed session to deal with items that can only be dealt by the council in closed session. Will come out, there'll be one quick vote, and then there'll be a quick adjournment and the meeting will be over. So take your quick 4-minute recess, council, 5-minute recess, whatever you need, and we will come back.
All right, I am ending the stream right now.
We're pretty tight.